The Body Electric by Andrada Coos. There are many locked doors in this house, Tesla told me, skipping down the corridor in her ruffled dress, giggling, delighted. Her sounds should have been those of a playful child, but coming from her mouth, in that house, they seemed more like the distant laments of a ghost. Her face was covered by a veil, but it could not hide the red pallor of her lips, or the way they curled in mischievous satisfaction whenever she troubled those around her. She was the Body Electric, sacrosanct mater familias, a child of barely 9. After dinner on my first evening in the house, I had asked Arthur about the veil on Tesla's face. "That's just for everyone's safety," he assured me. "Safety from what?" I asked. I thought it was a religious thing. He mumbled something about electricity and poison, and left it at that. "Oh, don't pay attention to her rubbish, Marcus. She's just teasing you." Arthur put a comforting hand on my shoulder. "She is right, though," I said. "There are a lot of locked doors in your house." The night before I had gotten lost. I had wandered up to the wrong floor. Last glass of scotch Arthur had forced on me in one hand, half-burnt-out cigarette in another. The house was too big. It belonged in a Gothic novel. Except I was no virginal heroine. I tried the doors. They were all locked. That evening, Arthur was sitting in his armchair as content as a big cat after a meal. Built like Samson, with short dark hair and a neatly cut beard, he was a nice guy, of the lovable brute variety. He was a carpenter, a whimsical profession considering his upbringing. He made a rack for my wine collection. We became friends. He said his family was strange. I didn't believe him. Tesla was reading a book by the fire. Some horrific children's fairy tales of the old-fashioned variety, with ogres and pig hearts and sugar statues that would have terrified the sensitive hearts of modern parents anywhere but in that house. The household consisted, I was told, of Miss Billy, Arthur's mother, Arthur himself, Tesla, and Arthur's younger sister, Lily. Lily was ill. I didn't see her. As to Tesla's relation to Arthur, it remained a bit of a mystery. I was led to believe that they were rather cousins than siblings, but where was Tesla's family then? She hardly seemed the pitiful orphan type. I got lost again that night. It was the house. Every corridor on every floor looked exactly the same, as if the architect had deliberately built it to give people a headache. Like a hall of mirrors. The paneling was the same, the doors were the same, the carpeting, the chandeliers hung low, a diffuse glow, shedding some light on the hallway to no avail. I might as well have been walking in darkness. I wondered where Arthur was. Last time I had seen him, he was putting away the books Tesla had so carelessly disregarded on the floor. She was used to being served. Tesla never lifted a finger. Arthur offered to show me to my room. I brushed him off with a laugh. What was I, 5? Apparently so. "Arthur?" I called out, a touch embarrassed, a touch afraid to break the gloomy silence. No answer. The best solution was to find the stairs and go to the ground level. That would lead to the entrance and then to the study. Where were the stairs again? To the right, then left, 2 rights, 1 left. Too much scotch. Arthur was an enabling horror when it came to alcohol. I was annoyed, so I decided to be extra rude and banged on all the doors. My knocking echoed like the sound of church bells in the night. One door felt out of place. The moment my fist reached for it, it stopped mid-air. I couldn't knock on it. A hand grabbed my fist from behind. I started, but quickly recognized the big rough hands as belonging to Arthur. "What are you doing all the way up here?" he asked with a smile, but I sensed he was worried. Up where? I was confused. Never mind. Let's get you to your room. Can you walk by yourself? He asked, and I caught him stealing a glance toward the door. And if I can't? Are you offering to carry me to my room? I'm not some damsel in distress, I told him with a scoff, but immediately stumbled, as if to prove him right. How about a shoulder to lean on, then? He offered and grabbed my arm before I had a chance to protest. As we headed down the corridor, he said, Marcus, don't try to go into that room again. It's dangerous. Whose room is it? Tesla's? I laughed to myself, but Arthur was being unusually serious. It's Lily's room, he said. Your sister? Does she have a contagious disease or something? You could say that. Isn't keeping her under lock and key a bit much, though? I asked. No answer. Arthur was the sort of obstinate fellow that explained himself once and assumed that explanation was valid for all other questions. Drowsiness overcame me, and I fell asleep against Arthur's shoulder, like a baby. In the end, I was just like a damsel in distress, passed out from the sheer excitement of my adventure. When I woke up, I was in my room, in my bed. I had a splitting headache and resolved not to drink again that day. The first things Arthur greeted me with at breakfast were a smile and a beer. Sleep well? Arthur asked as we took our seats at the dining room table. Just the sight of food made me want to vomit. I grabbed some toast out of politeness while Arthur wolfed down a copious meal. Tesla skipped into the dining room and I smelled trouble. She skipped when she was happy, and she was happy only when she was sure she was going to upset someone. She sat down at the table and asked, Did you finally get a chance to meet Lily, Marcus? Arthur stopped eating and looked at her, displeased. No, I said. I wasn't introduced. I heard she's sick. Oh, is that what Arthur told you? She chuckled. She is sick, Arthur told her in a raised voice. Now, children, behave. Miss Millie came into the room to pacify all sides. My daughter, she was addressing me, became ill after a transplant. Arthur blames Tesla, given she was the donor, but it was nobody's fault. Lily made her own choice. I'm sorry, was all I could say. Under her veil, Tesla was smiling again. Someone was lying. It was 10 o'clock at night, and I was standing in front of a door again. I didn't remember how I had gotten there. Arthur insisted on keeping me drunk for the duration of my visit. Did he think I would be more docile of a guest if my judgment was clouded? Could it be I was at Lily's door again? I thought about knocking, but remembered how my fist had refused to go anywhere near the door the previous night. I tried pushing it open instead, and, to my surprise, it moved. Inside, the room was like all the other rooms in that house. Old furniture, thick rugs, big, bold paintings. A girl was sitting on the bed. Her face was covered by a veil. Lily? I asked. She didn't answer. Are you feeling better? Was Tesla playing some joke on me? Would I find the porcelain face of a life-size doll beneath the veil? You shouldn't be here, she said, all of a sudden, as if sensing what was going through my head. I'm sorry, I just felt I had to come in, to make sure you were okay, I said. Was that really why I kept finding myself in front of her door? You shouldn't concern yourself with me, she said, and her voice was like the echo of a flowing stream, tumultuous and pure. I sat down on the bed next to her. Do you mind if I ask to see your face? Her head was turned toward me. I reached out a hand and lifted her veil like you would that of a bride. Her eyes were magnificent, the color of lightning right before it blinds you. It occurred to me that these were the eyes of Tesla, not Lily. Looking up at me, it was Tesla's lips and Tesla's breath that flowed into me when she pressed her lips to mine. I let the veil fall back on her face and promised I would come see her again the following evening. That night, I dreamt of endless corridors. I could envision every one of the house's rooms, doors, and imperfections. I startled, awake, when I realized I did not see them as myself, but as someone else, hiding behind a veil. Arthur was sitting at the foot of my bed, looking defeated. There was an endless sadness about him, and he said, "You opened the door, didn't you?" "What are you talking about?" I asked for a moment, still caught in the web of my dreams. "Arthur, it's well after midnight. Why don't we talk about this in the morning?" "It's already too late." His voice was broken. "Arthur." I found myself awkwardly patting him on the back, trying to comfort him. I didn't even acknowledge the moment when I collapsed. It began like a delirium, a hot melting fever that clung to me. I was there, yet not there. My sense of reality was acute at times. I could perceive every inch of the room, from the details of the embroideries down to the last speck of dust. Other times, everything became blurred, and I was not sure any of it ever existed. The bed, the room, the house, Tesla. I talked myself into believing their illusion, only to be again catapulted back into a microscopic knowledge of my surroundings and their reality. Miss Millie looked after me. She used a wet cloth to cool my face. The cold water evaporated before it had a chance to touch my skin. I was living flame. "Why haven't you called a doctor?" I asked in one of my rare moments of clarity. "You don't need one. I'm afraid you're more the victim of a curse than a disease," she said, with some regret in her voice. Perhaps I wasn't clear enough about the nature of the transplant Tesla underwent. One night, while having a strange vision of Arthur transforming into a lion, gouging my eyes out and feasting on them with the satisfaction he showed while eating meat, Tesla entered my room. Her mere presence made reality re-emerge, and I half stood up, panting and shaking, as if someone had finally pulled me out of a cauldron of smoldering lava. Tesla was not wearing her veil. Her smile was as malevolent as I had suspected it to be. There was sweetness in it, though, the kind that belongs to the mischief of children. But which smile was real? That of the child, or that of the cruel adult inside a child's body? "Why aren't you wearing your veil?" I asked as she approached the bed. Her eyes were those of Lily, unreal, like magic orbs of sizzling electric energy. I wondered if I had not been right before in assuming it had been Tesla I had encountered in that room, not Lily. For Lily was no different from Tesla except in age. Had the woman I met been the adult hiding in Tesla's body? Was she a cursed fairy tale princess that only returned to her true form at night? "I don't need to wear it in front of you any more," she said. "I'm glad you're here to stay." She turned to leave without another word. I wanted to follow her, but as soon as she stepped foot outside the room, my world was shattered again. Arthur rushed to my side. The lion was back, watching its prey from the corner. Arthur was sobbing into my shoulder. The ceiling was a churning vortex. The lion did not like it. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. Tesla asked me to bring you here after I told them about you. I thought they only wanted to meet you. I'm sorry," he said. Was that really him, though? Or the lion? The windows disintegrated, molecule by molecule, and dark caves appeared beyond them. They lead, of all places, to Nana's orchard, where I had spent my summers as a child climbing trees, chasing geese, and swimming in clear blue waters. I hadn't thought of it in years. I was crying. However, it dawned on me that those weren't tears falling down my face, but my actual eyes leaking away. It did not hurt, but I wondered how I would still see without them. I could feel Arthur cradling my body. I could see the lion watching the vortex and the ripe apples on the trees in the orchard. Marcus, Marcus, Marcus. Arthur kept calling my name. A surge of energy flowed through me like an electric discharge. It shot into my head, filling the empty orbits my eyes had left behind. It crept into my brain and wove into the fabric of my being, waking me up to reality. But to which reality? Now, I am a secret under a veil, behind a locked door, in a house full of corridors, where all the doors and rooms and floors are the same. Sometimes I am me, your narrator and friend. Sometimes I am something else. And every time I am less of me and more of it. Like an electrical current going on and off, a switch in my head, but who flips it? On, off, on, off, on, off. Every time, a little bit less of me. On, off, on, off, on, off. Until there will be nothing left of me but these words. Andrada Coos is a graduate of Brunel University's creative writing program in the UK, where she had the opportunity to study under the excellent Faye Weldon. Originally from Romania, she has been studying and working abroad in Europe and Asia for over 7 years. She enjoys writing in both English and Romanian and aims to one day have books published in both. Her short stories have been featured in the Pins and Needles Literary Journal and Suspense Magazine, on the Jukepop Serials and Shortbread Stories websites, and read at Liars League Hong Kong events. You can learn more at her website, www.andradacoosh.com/en.